Well, would you look at that? We've got the Portland Diamond Project showing signs of life for the first time since before the pandemic, scouting new ballpark locations. This according to an article by Ballpark Digest. It says, written off by many in the industry for lack of activity, the Portland Diamond Project is showing some signs of life, scouting locations for a new MLB ballpark that include the iconic Lloyd Center Mall site. And of course, we know Portland back in 2019 put out some plans, some renderings for an interesting retractable roof stadium that was to be located right next to the water. Looks like they would seat about 30,000 people, which is totally standard. When it comes to Portland, I'm going to give my thoughts. Do I think they're a viable expansion option? Could we see, once the Rays situation gets solved, the MLB then saying we want one East Coast expansion team? That might be Nashville, that might be Orlando, but I'd probably bet on Nashville. And we want one West Coast expansion team, which we would presumably think would come down to Salt Lake City and Portland, Oregon as the two main options. Maybe someone else throws their name into the ring, but I will say both Portland and Salt Lake City have not impressed me, especially Salt Lake City with their proposal. Looks very, very blah. Looks, very simple. They really need to update that. Orlando at least came out with something that was interesting, but it says the Portland Diamond Project was active before the pandemic, scouting out new ballpark sites and bringing in initial investors like Russell Wilson. But the pandemic took a lot of steam out of the group's efforts, and uncertainty surrounding the status of the new Oakland and Tampa Bay ballpark efforts didn't help, freezing the industry from mapping out the inevitable expansion plans. The preferred waterfront site for the group ended up tangled in red tape as well. No site, no schedule, no plan, no visibility. So they're saying those renderings are probably already scrapped, but I mean, honestly, that stadium does look pretty decent. It seems very modern, very small upper deck, very little seating. It wouldn't surprise me even if they had to move locations, which it looks like they're doing. They're kind of pivoting. They would still use a stadium design that looks like that. It later says there is some enthusiasm for MLB ball in Portland, and we're hearing reports that the group has been scouting out ballpark locations, with the preferred site being the Lloyd Center, once a high-end mall in Northeast Portland's Lloyd district that's fallen on tough times. And that's one of the more common things we're seeing with these super malls. You've got all this shopping going on with Amazon. People don't want to go out. So many different malls. I've actually got a pretty big mall near me, and it is a complete, desert. It's very depressing. It's very sad. It makes complete sense. You've got people, stores cycling in and out of there every few months. I don't want to go off on a mall tangent, but it's going to be very hard for malls to survive in this current market with Amazon. I mean, the Amazon stuff is just ridiculous. We've had packages, we'll order them, and we do have a big Amazon center that's like 2 cities over, but we've had packages, we'll order them in the morning and they'll be there by 4 o'clock. I just cringe when I see that. Like, how bad are these people getting worked? It's crazy. But either way, guys, it looks like they're taking an old mall, looking at that site. We know how hard it is to really batten down an actual site. Right now, the whole Las Vegas situation, they had to pivot and change sites completely, and now they're on a much smaller site. It's going to be one of the smaller footprints in the MLB. It looks like Portland is changing their efforts from the waterfront and looking at the Lloyd Center. And then also the other thing you have to think about, this is Portland, Oregon. They've got horrible crime. I'm not going to get political because that's not what this video is about, but they do have bad crime in Portland, and there is not a high incentive for a lot of big-time clothing stores like Nordstrom to stay in there with the way that they police those situations in those cities. I'll just leave it at that. The Diamond Project has been linked to the Lloyd Center for years, but it's emerged as more of a realistic target according to sources after the other sites lost steam, and the once popular mall, known for its skating rink, failed to rebound from the pandemic and fell into foreclosure. If we view baseball as an economic driver that can be part of the solution amid Portland's crisis, which I think we should, then to the principles involved in any negotiation, I say this: get it done. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I think Portland has a political issue that bringing baseball there won't fix that. But, either way, that's another topic for another day. I think Portland has a lot of problems right now. Them getting a baseball team seems pretty far-fetched, but I thought I would share this report that they are looking at new sites, and it does seem like that rendering that we got back in 2019 is useless. I will say, admittedly, both of the West Coast options, I'm really not all that enthused at if I'm the MLB. Like, if I was the MLB right now, the two places I would be looking at, and I'll just be honest, it's Austin, Texas, and it's Nashville, Tennessee. That bottom line, that's the two expansion places I'm looking at. You can put, I would say put Nashville in the NL, put Austin, Texas in the AL, just because I think it aligns better. You could say the AL West. You could do a division realignment, which I think that is coming as well. The MLB probably wants to do that, especially with how ridiculous the AL Central is. It's just a complete joke that one of those teams this year is going to be getting a playoff spot. So I do think that once the news on Oakland gets worked out, very likely they're moving to Vegas. That gets finalized. You move to the AAA park, all of that. You get the Rays situation, which I really think is probably close to a 50-50, maybe 60-40 that they'll stay put. It just seems like they're putting a Band-Aid on the problem if they're staying in St. Petersburg. I don't know. That's one of the main concerns. And then they're like, oh no, we're just going to build an entire new stadium district right next to Tropicana Field. Why would that make sense? They've complained about that location for years. I understand the stadium sucks, but still, is the attendance really going to get that much better if you're staying in St. Petersburg and the fans are complaining about the traffic, things like that? But once those situations get figured out, we will get some type of division realignment. We could see an NBA model, and with that exact same time frame, we will get the expansion. Will it be West Coast, East Coast, Salt Lake City, Portland, Oregon, or maybe a new contender emerges in that time zone, the Pacific time zone or the Mountain time zone? Or do we get kind of a Nashville and maybe San Antonio, Texas, maybe Austin, Texas type thing? Orlando, I think, only really has a chance at an MLB team if they get Tampa Bay to relocate. I don't think the MLB would put 3 teams in Florida, but either way, the updated situation, Portland is scouting sites, and they are currently looking at a historic mall that has fallen on hard times. So that is the updated expansion situation. Also, we had the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday, the MLB dropping a bombshell, an early little threat, saying, look, you need to upgrade American Family Field. A lot of people really don't understand it, considering American Family Field really not one of the worst ballparks in the MLB, certainly not one of the best. I think I had it at 22 out of 30, but it's not like, okay, this thing's a complete dump. My guess is because Milwaukee is a very small market, the MLB has significant concerns that Milwaukee will keep kicking the can down the road and not be able to fund this with the public funds that they want. And it would be kind of like the ballpark would eventually, by 2030, when the lease is up, go and become really obsolete, because I do agree at some point in the mid to late 2020s, American Family Field does need a renovation. My hypothesis is that the MLB is looking ahead and saying, listen, Milwaukee seems to, be a very small market. The public never wants to pay anything, and rightfully so, but the MLB is seeing the writing on the wall and trying to be proactive and get at this early and say, listen, your ballpark, it's not one of the worst yet. Like, I think the idea that they were comparing it to the Oakland Coliseum, I mean, what are we doing there, right? That's a little ridiculous, but I think it's an early warning shot to say, look, we want to motivate you to raise this. Otherwise, this thing's going to fall into being a very poor facility if it receives no renovation by 2030. You need to do something, and that's why the MLB came out and gave a backhanded threat referencing the Oakland Athletics' inability to get a new stadium and the move that subsequently will likely follow. So that is the Milwaukee Brewers situation as I see it right now. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.